The year was 1903. A small, quiet town in Iowa named Van Meter lay shrouded in the silence of farmland nights, its streets dimly lit by oil lamps and the glow of the moon. Nothing ever really happened here, at least, until something arrived that would haunt its people for generations. It began with a single man, awakened by a strange sound echoing through the streets. Clarence Dunn, a respected businessman, rubbed the sleep from his eyes as he stepped onto his porch. In the distance, a faint light pulsed, unlike anything he had ever seen. At first, he thought it might be a prank or someone walking with a lantern, but then the light moved. Not steadily, like a man with a torch, but in sharp, sudden jerks as if it was alive. Clarence blinked, his breath catching in his throat. From the rooftop across the street, he saw it, a towering figure perched like some unholy gargoyle, its form silhouetted against the night, and from the center of its forehead, a beam of brilliant, unnatural light pierced the darkness. Imagine standing there, alone, in the dead of night. Would you dare approach, or would you run back inside, praying you had only imagined it? Clarence, trembling but stubborn, raised his shotgun and fired. The blast shattered the silence, echoing across the town. But when the smoke cleared, the creature was gone. Only the light remained, flickering as though taunting him until it vanished into the black sky. The next day, whispers filled Van Meter. Clarence wasn't alone. Others, too, began reporting encounters. A banker saw the same glow, moving between the buildings late at night. A doctor swore he heard heavy, clawed footsteps on his roof, the thud of something massive shifting above his head. Each account described the same impossible being, winged, immense, radiating a blinding light from its forehead. And then came the sound. Witnesses described a deafening, unnatural noise, half whistle, half scream that split the nightlight glass. Horses bolted in terror. Windows rattled in their frames, and still the beam of light swept across the town, searching, probing, as if the creature were hunting. Some said it was no animal but a demon. Others whispered it was something out of science fiction, a visitor from the stars. Yet the people of Van Meter didn't have long to speculate, because the sightings were growing bolder, closer. And soon there would be no denying that whatever had come to Van Meter was not leaving quietly. But what do you think? Was it flesh and blood, a hidden creature of Earth? Or was it something beyond our understanding, a being from another world? The night after Clarence Dunn's terrifying encounter, Van Meter was restless. Curtains twitched, doors were locked tighter than ever before. But fear couldn't keep the townsfolk from curiosity, and as dusk fell, more eyes watched the streets, waiting to see if the light would return. It didn't take long. Just past midnight, Dr. Alcott, the town's physician, was jolted awake by the sound of scratching above his head. At first, he thought it was a raccoon, but then the noise grew heavier, deliberate, dragging claws across the roof like iron hooks. His hands trembled as he grabbed his revolver, stepping outside to confront whatever had disturbed his sleep. And there it was. Perched above him, silhouetted against the stars, was the same monstrous figure Clarence had described. Its wings stretched unnaturally wide, like a bat, but far larger, and its body seemed to ripple with unnatural strength. From its forehead blazed the impossible light, so bright it forced Alcott to shield his eyes. The creature turned toward him, and the beam fell directly onto his face, searing, almost blinding. The doctor fired twice into the air, bullets cracking like thunder, but the thing didn't even flinch. Instead, it let out that sound, the horrific shriek that seemed both mechanical and alive, piercing the night like a blade. Neighbors rushed out of their homes, weapons in hand, only to see the creature unfurl its wings and vanish into the sky. It moved with terrifying speed, almost as if the night itself had swallowed it whole. By morning, Van Meter was in chaos. Farmers swore their horses had nearly broken their necks trying to flee their stables. Children woke screaming from nightmares of the glowing demon, and all across town, talk spread like wildfire. The thing is real, it's watching us. The following evening, another sighting drove the town deeper into panic. O.V. White, a hardware store owner, spotted the beam of light moving through his shop window. He froze, heart pounding, as the shape of the creature filled the doorway. Enormous, hunched, radiating power, it stood as though testing him, waiting. And then, in a blur, it was gone again. That's when the theories began. Some claimed it was the devil himself, sent to punish Van Meter for its sins. Others insisted it was a prehistoric animal, something from another age, awoken by chance. But one idea unsettled the town more than the rest. What if it wasn't alone? Because strange tracks had been found near the old mine on the edge of town. Massive prints, far too large for any known animal. And several men swore they had seen not one but two beams of light cutting through the dark, moving side by side. The tension built until the people of Van Meter made a choice. They would no longer cower inside their homes, waiting. A group of the town's bravest and most heavily armed men gathered, determined to hunt the creature down. But what would you do? If your town was stalked by something so strange, so terrifying, would you dare confront it? Or would you pray it never turned its gaze toward you? The night of the hunt was unlike anything the town of Van Meter had ever seen. Nearly every man who could carry a weapon gathered at the edge of Main Street. Rifles, shotguns, revolvers, they brought it all. Lanterns flickered nervously, casting shaky halos of light on the dirt road. The air itself seemed to hum with anticipation, but underneath that was dread, a fear no amount of firepower could erase. They weren't just chasing a rumor anymore. They had all seen it, the beam, the wings, the shriek. And now, they were going to face it. At first, the night was eerily silent. Dogs didn't bark. Horses stood restless in their stalls, wide-eyed. It was as though the world itself was holding its breath. Then, just past midnight, someone shouted, "There, on the roof." Every lantern swung upward, and there it was. The creature loomed atop the bricked facade of the bank, wings curled like shadows. Its glowing forehead pulsed brighter and brighter until it blasted down a beam of light that cut through the crowd, scattering men like startled deer. Shots rang out, the town erupted in gunfire, echoing like a war zone. Bullets slammed into brick and wood, but the monster remained untouched. It let out that otherworldly cry, a sound so deafening some men dropped their rifles to cover their ears. And then it moved. With a single, impossible leap, the creature launched into the air, gliding over the mob. The hunters spun in confusion, aiming wildly, but the light seared their vision. It seemed to toy with them, darting from roof to roof, always just out of reach. Every time they thought they had it cornered, it vanished into the black sky, only to reappear behind them, mocking, relentless. That's when something happened no one expected. A second beam lit up the night. Across the street, another figure smaller but unmistakably merged from the shadows, two creatures. The crowd froze. The reality struck them harder than any scream could. This wasn't a lone visitor, they were being stalked. Panic set in, men fired in all directions, shouts and curses mixing with the piercing roars above. The creatures circled, weaving beams of light like predators herding prey. Horses broke free, tearing down the street, while lanterns crashed to the ground, flames licking at the dirt. One man, a blacksmith named John Mason, swore he hit one of them dead on with his shotgun. He claimed the blast struck square in its chest. But instead of falling, the thing barely faltered, it just gave a furious shriek and vanished into the night sky. And just like that, silence returned. The only sounds left were heavy breathing, the hiss of dying lanterns, and the whispered question that slipped from every trembling lip. What are we dealing with? No one slept that night, no one dared, because they realized something terrifying: the creatures weren't attacking to kill. They were studying, observing, playing. And that raised a darker thought. If they were this powerful and they wanted to harm the people of Van Meter, what chance did anyone really have? But tell me, if you had been there, gun in hand, staring up at not one but two glowing monsters circling your town, would you have stood your ground? Or run into the dark, praying they didn't follow? By dawn, Van Meter was no longer the same town. Broken windows stared like hollow eyes, doors hung off their hinges. Scorch marks from the strange beams marred brick walls, proof that no one could deny what they had seen. Yet the real scars ran deeper in the people themselves. The men gathered again, exhausted and shaken. No one boasted of bravery anymore. Their voices were hushed, as if speaking too loud might summon the creatures back. Some wanted to leave town entirely. Others insisted they should strike harder, chase the beings back into whatever pit they came from. But beneath every word lingered the same unspoken terror: they are still out there. That night, a small group decided to follow the trail of the creatures beyond the town's edge. The air felt heavy, the way a storm presses against your skin before it breaks. Every step into the prairie was a step further from safety. Lanterns swung low, their light weak against the rolling shadows. And then they heard it. A shriek so loud it vibrated in their bones. Not from above this time, but from below. The ground itself trembled. They reached the old abandoned mine on the outskirts of town, a place long whispered to be cursed. From its mouth glowed a faint, steady light. The hunters raised their rifles, edging closer. But the closer they came, the stronger the vibration grew, until the earth threatened to split. And then, from the darkness of the mine, two massive figures emerged, the same creatures that had tormented the town. Wings unfurled, their glowing foreheads blazing like beacons in the night. But this time, there was no chase, no circling, no games. The monsters simply stood there, side by side, towering over the trembling men. They did not attack, they did not flee. They only stared, their eyes reflecting something ancient, something that felt less like an animal and more like a force. One of the men swore later that the light shifted, not just shining, but pulsing in patterns like a language no human could read. A message, a warning, or maybe a claim. And then, without a sound, the creatures turned, stepped back into the mine, and disappeared into the earth. The glowing beams faded until only the black mouth of the cave remained. The hunters dropped their guns, none dared follow. They knew Van Meter was no longer just a town on a map, it was a place marked. From that day forward, strange lights continued to appear near the old mine. Some nights, a screech could still be heard echoing across the fields. And the people of Van Meter learned to live with the uneasy truth: they hadn't driven the creatures away. They had only witnessed the beginning. And now I ask you, if one night, a glowing beam cut across your window, pulling you from sleep, would you open the curtains to see what's waiting outside? Because the Van Meter visitor is said to return when least expected. And maybe, just maybe, the next town it claims won't be Van Meter, it could be yours. If this story sent chills down your spine, imagine what else is lurking in the shadows. Don't miss the next encounter. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and join me as we uncover more of the world's most haunting legends.